For the first material, I made this rock texture right here. I threw the height scale up so you can kind of see the distortion. But it initially starts out as this square, and then there's this gradient that gets thrown on it to try to throw this line a little lower for the normal maps. And then with the blend of this moisture noise, it'll get thrown into kind of these cracks and divots. And at the very end, once it's all been kind of warped and distorted, I put it into a tile sampler, lower down the parameters for the X and the Y, and then it just really just starts getting twisted a little bit here, a little bit there, different directions. I started adding different noises and lowering down the scale. And then with there, it gets blended with a couple levels and some shadow nodes. It gets blended down to this texture here. And then there's a little bit of the detail. It kind of throws it in there. I really like how this part turned out. It kind of takes away from it. Where's my... Is this it? No. There's, 1 second, I'll find it. Yeah, through here, I feel like it was a lot more textured before I did this. But the blend, we can mess within the parameters to make it as bumpy or as flat as you'd like through this opacity on the blend on this one. There's some rock shaping that goes on right here. Kind of gives it more scratches through this blend. The higher you turn it up, it kind of gets real ugly. And then this pitting is like the real small textures that you can see here. Probably make that one a parameter as well. And then the big cracks goes from a tile sampler that was um, kind of scaled down. I lowered the X and the Y, scaled the sizes down to give these like rectangle patterns. And then there's a histogram scan that can throw the positions in different areas. There's an edge. Uh, so this distance one, it kind of like throws them as far back as you can get them right here. And then it'll give you like this, the very edges of all these. There we go. Trying to show you as best as I can. But that's what it was able to throw all the shapes back and blow them up, kind of give you the cells. Throw them in a directional warp one way, directional warp another way, and then did an edge detect to take all that distortion. This bevel kind of softens the lines so the normal maps don't show up as harsh. Blurring them out, blend that together. Anyway, it kind of gives you this directional warp of everything. And that's what I was throwing into the levels. This is what you can play with on one of the other parameters. And then these are just smaller cracks that also go into depth with them. Let me get this in here. And then for the albedo, it's a lot of different colors, just kind of, I took this from one picture, took this just kind of from the same picture with different little shadows and everything, blended that together so it can give you this one. And we can mess with this to take which of the gradients. I left it on copy just because we can lower the opacity for it. For this normal, this was just to give me the overall shape. For another blend, they gave me this curvature smooth. Do the curvature smooth. There it gives you a couple different options. It gives you the curvature, the convex goes up, the concavity which goes down. Through these, I was able to get a gradient map with a dirt texture and this blend, and you can raise it up or lower it down to give you kind of like the gray textures that you want on there. Then I used a little bit of the concavity for that one. I used it for another blend down here, and then we used it for levels that's on an auto level that gets taken to another blend. And then this one, I was gonna throw this on here so you can see if you can mess with the hue, saturation, and everything, but I didn't really like how it turns out. But it's in the map right now, so I didn't want to take it out. You can mess with the lightness, I guess. Uniform color through another blend, invert grayscale. It's just a lot of messing around to see what we can do with the color. At the end of it, I added a color match that you can mess with the colors for the parameters. And that was pretty much for that one. And then the way it sits in Painter, I just threw it on the meat mat. And for the head, if you look at this one, you can do the height. I'm on the, sorry, surface detail, kind of make it more bumpy. There's the surface depth. So how deep you want those details to go. So if you turn the detail up a little bit, you can get the depth to go as deep as possible or as high, kind of flatten them out. Then there's with a tile sampler, if earlier on, you can add different different sides to the original shape, which was a square, and that can give you some more simple variation. The large cracks, if you like the cracking that was going on in there, you can add it to different portions. So like if you go to the body, go to the large cracks, just kind of makes them deeper and deeper. For the color, it's very subtle, but you can change the color options as well. Maybe if it'll help with the reflection. And then again, we'll go back to the head for the roughness, just to make it if you wanted it to be super shiny or super dull, depending on how you have your cracks, how you have your rocks and everything set up. And that's what we have for the rock material. And then now with turn on the snow material. Material's a little bit more simpler. We got some clouds, went through a blur, the slope blur grayscale, mess with the sampling a little bit, turn the intensity down, run it through levels. That's what gives us the slope blur. Added in some black and white spots for the mass that goes into the blend. And then through there it goes into another histogram scan, and that's what runs into the nodes. And ambient inclusion just stayed there. Once I started messing with it, it turned it a little too dark. And then once we get on to the exposed parameters, put it into the meat mat. For the head, we can do like the height of it. This is just the snow material, ice coverage if you wanted it. This is really just the roughness. So if it's like real frozen, you can see that one. Color, just like it with any of the other ones. It's real subtle. And then the noise, depending how rough you wanted it. For the snow texture, kind of mess with it. Turn it into the body. The color is really just more of a variation if you like the, pretty sure it's gonna go with the reflection of whatever light source, besides using plain out the roughness for it. Roughness is cool, but I don't know, I didn't really feel like the color was gonna be that bright for snow, so I didn't really give you too much options for it, but any part that's real shiny does a pretty good reflection for the snow. But those are for the two materials I've made for the rock and the snow. Thank you very much.